Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be taking a look at the brand new Tenable Knives Luccio. I don't know about y'all, but I really hope we see more EDC fixed blades coming from Tenable. I think this is their first fixed blade, at least that I can recall. Somebody let me know if that's not the case, but this represents an incredible value. Let's dive right into it. So you get this nice minimal fold over taco style kydex sheath. I love seeing that. Keeps this nice and streamlined, easier to carry in my opinion. You got a nice push off ramp there, nice positive click in there, no rattle whatsoever, excellent job. Comes with a small tech lock style belt clip attachment. You can adjust this to the size of your belt and then it locks into place. You just push this down and it unlocks. For belt carry, this is great. You can turn this vertical, horizontal, depending on how you want to carry it. After this review, I'm probably going to put a 3x3 Alti clip on here. That's just the way I prefer to carry it. I like to either carry it like I'm carrying one of my folders or just drop it in the back pocket. So great job on the sheath. So when it comes to my EDC fixed blades, this is actually a good bit bigger than I typically go for. I'm usually not looking for my EDC fixed blade to be over like 7¼ inches. But when it does go a little bit over, it depends on how compact the package is and how lightweight the package is. This one right here comes in at 8.2 inches overall. It has a 3.78 inch harpoon blade of 14C 20N steel. Beautiful raw stonewash finish. You got a nice top swedge that comes down to thin out that tip, giving you a very needle-like tip. Great for piercing into bags of potato chips. Or the versatility on a harpoon. You got a fairly low tip. I can easily manipulate it to do some fine, intricate cutting, and we'll see how that works later in the testing footage. You have an excellent row of grippy jimping there. That's how you do it. It's nice and fine cut. So it grips the thumb whenever you put pressure on it, but if you don't need it, it's not going to tear up your thumb either. This is a collaboration with Bolt Vision. I don't know too much about them. I have to check them out. And there's a good macro shot of that raw stonewash finish. A raw stonewash finish is definitely my favorite finish because it hides wear so well. You have a decent sharpening choil. It thickens up about right here, so you probably have about that far before you'll have to do something with it. However, when it comes to my fixed blades, that's not an issue for me. That's an easy fix. I don't have to worry about a stop pin or anything getting in the way. This blade has somewhat of a slicer grind. You have a small flat right here, and it goes into a full flat up here toward the poonage right there. Your blade stock thickness is coming in at 0.12. And you have a nice high flat grind that they managed to get down nice and thin to around 14 thousandths behind the edge. And my particular knife has a 20 degrees per side edge bevel from factory. I think it's time to see how this one performs. We got a pretty sharp knife out of box. And boy, this thing is slicing very well. I'm not exactly sure what the thickness is behind the edge or not, but you have a nice high flat grind, so it is slicey. That's all I'm trying to say. Your belly's not too crazy to where you're gonna feel like you're gonna slide out of the cut toward the end. I think I could do some fairly long cuts, and pretty much every which way I cut the cardboard, it felt like I was cutting through foam or paper. It was very nice. And whenever it's slicing really well, I'll take my time because I like seeing if I feel any drag or anything. And that's something you'll start to feel when you have super thick flats or super thick behind the edge knives. But with single wall cardboard, you don't feel it that much. Now we're testing the ergos, and we're gonna start out with light pressure. I'm choked up all the way up on there so I can control that edge a little better. And we're gonna slowly start to increase that pressure more and more. And light and moderate pressure, it was very comfortable. It wasn't until the very end when you'll see me, I'm really putting as much pressure as I can into the wood. I start feeling these chamfers. They got some hard edges toward the backside. And it wasn't terrible, but I did notice it. I was so happy to see that this knife had some bite to it. Now, it doesn't have the most bite I've ever seen from a knife, and I will definitely be laying the edge back some. I forget what, I think this one's at like 22 degrees per side. You know, that's very common for a lot of production knives. This one is performing good. That thin blade geometry is helping out a lot. I thought it did fantastic, and I can't wait, like I said, to put my own edge on it. It'll do 10 times better. You definitely have the perfect amount of belly to do these cuts on a flat cutting surface. It made my job a lot easier, especially being that this one had some bite to it. And the edge felt good at the end of the cutting. And, you know, I think it'll continue to do good all the way through this. So let's see. You can use the tip like I said earlier, but you will have to raise up a good bit. But, you know, if you really need to make that type of cut, you can do it. If not, just use your belly. Nothing that I cut gave it any trouble. It blasted through that dense cardboard right there. And usually if it's starting to dull out, that's where I notice it first. And I noticed that the belly was conducive to flat cuts on a flat surface whenever you do this denim. If not, the denim starts to spread out too much and it's much harder. Just like pretty much every Tenable knife so far that I've tested, they've been a joy. They usually come with pretty good edges. I've had, I think, one now that didn't have a whole lot of bite to it, but that's pretty common, especially in the budget realm. One thing's for certain, though, as soon as I'm done with this review, I will be putting my own edge on this one, and I can promise you it's going to be even slice here, and the performance is going to jump up dramatically. Currently, it's got a 20 degrees per side edge bevel. I'm probably going to drop it to around 17, maybe 18 degrees. And you got that high flat grind. This one already slices very well. It's going to slice even better. Now, I kind of touched on the ergos, I think, during the testing. And for the most part, it was really comfortable. You have this sharpening choil here. I do wish they would have went from here and then went down to the scale, knocked that hump off, so it'd be even more comfortable. However, if you're worried about the edge, you can sit right there and kind of use that as a guard, whatever you want to call it, because it's not really a guard, but it's just a piece of the tang coming up if you want to have some separation. But you can get right up to that edge. If you need to control your cut a little bit more, you could do that. And like I said, for the most part, it was comfortable. The only time I really noticed anything is whenever I was testing the ergos, when I got around probably the moderate pressure, and then I slowly started ramping it up. I talked about this in my first impressions video, and what I was hoping wouldn't happen kind of did. You can see the G10 scales have all these intricate milling, got these chamfers going all around. These right here are hollow ground chamfers. They're concave, and the same with this. They look nice, but the only problem is, especially when it's with G10, is the hard angles that they're leaving. I mean, you can see that right there. All that, it's not like sharp, but you can feel it. It's a hard edge. This didn't really bother me. The top didn't bother me that much, but right here where this dip comes down, this line right here, and this point right here, you can see that. Well, I could probably pull off a pencil if I did like that. Is not the most comfortable. Now, it wasn't awful or anything, but being that this is a $49 knife, I definitely think it's worth a quick pass with some fine grit sandpaper. It's a quick and easy fix to kind of round over those edges. If that's something y'all would like to see me do, y'all let me know. I know I talk about it a lot, but I definitely wouldn't mind showing you how easy it is to do something like that. And if I'm watching a review and they're talking about stuff like this, I hardly ever not buy it unless there's something crazy going on with tang or something. But they did a good job of rounding over that point right there, so that wasn't really an issue. But the point that is created from the G10, you know, not the most comfortable. And I noticed whenever I was putting it in the sheath, you know, usually you're grabbing it at the butt end of the knife to give that final little push. Well, this tail end right here is the worst offender. You can see that point right there that is created from the G10, and that's from this chamfer for the lanyard hole, and you can see it right there, hopefully. It's definitely a hard angle, and you know, it keeps the lines crisp. I get it. I know why they do that. Most of the time they're doing it so you can get the nice definition, because once I start to kind of round that over, depending on how far I go with it, you're going to lose some of that definition. And I'm not worried about definition. I'm not worried about how my scales are looking. I'm worried about how it feels in my hands. My hands are already torn up enough. I don't need anything extra to tearing them up. Now for my medium-sized hands, I still got a good bit left over when I'm choked up. My finger kind of does sit on that little hump. And like I said, I didn't notice it until I really started bearing down on it. But if you have large, extra large hands and this point sits anywhere near your palm, it may get a little uncomfortable for you. But like I said, that's a very easy fix. You can literally just take 800 to 1000 grit and just literally rub it across that hard line. Or what I like to do is just rub it like around, contour it a little bit. But probably take all of maybe 5-10 minutes. Of course, would it have been nicer if these were contoured scales? Of course, but at $49, I'm not going to complain too much. You have Peel Ply G10 scales, mine are purple. They have nice, large Torx T8 fasteners there. Tenable, can y'all loan some of those to Concept? Especially the ones y'all use for y'all body screws? You got a nice, large lanyard hole. Should be able to fit 550 very easily through that. And I'm guessing this might be the Joker edition because I have the purple. And then on this side, you have a green G10 liner. One thing I did notice is that the scales, even with the liner in there, they're not super thick. When it comes to my fixed blades, I really like whenever the thickness is at least 0.6 or greater. 0.5 is average for a folder. You know, in a fixed blade, you might be using it a lot harder and you might be using it for a lot longer. So you don't want to fatigue your wrist and forearms any quicker than you have to. These come in at 0.48, so they're not terrible, but it definitely would have been nicer, just a little bit thicker, especially being that you don't have contouring on these scales. All that said, everything I did, for the duration I did it, it was fine. My forearms and my wrists, no fatiguing at that point, because whenever they're bad enough, my wrists and forearms fatigue right away because I'm bearing down, trying to keep the knife from spinning on me whenever I'm pushing really hard. So saber grip, comfortable. Hammer grip, comfortable. This reverse pull grip is okay. Kind of feels a little awkward just because of the dip down in the handle right there. And then if you had to do the reverse gas station knife fight grip, you could do that even though this comes up to somewhat of a point. It's not sharp or anything. So if you need to stab it into a log so you can make a feather stick with it that way, you could do that. So when it came to carry, I could not help myself. I just don't carry with the Tech Lock. If you do, that's perfectly fine. You know, they work great on belt carry. I love the Alti clip. I think it just functions for the type of carry I like to do. So I slapped a 3x3 Alti clip on here. You do have, you know, somewhat of a good bit sticking out of the pocket. That's typical for a lot of sheaths. They just don't make them higher up if they don't have to, I guess. And it's not always an option, I guess. But I think it sits deep enough if I have a longer shirt, you know, you wouldn't even see it. And I was really surprised. I thought this one was going to be a little weighty in the pocket. I'm going to have to weigh it after this. It wasn't cumbersome at all. It definitely feels like a under 7-inch EDC fixed blade. But you can easily retrieve it. And whenever I have these lightweight shorts on, I just basically grab the bottom of the sheath and pick it up just so I'm not stabbing myself. And then I run the top edge on the Kydex, slide it down. That way it guides itself in there. And voila. Then I can go about my business. So 3x3 Alta clip works great. I might see if the small 2x2 maybe would fit on this, because I wish I could have used this screw, but I would have had to use these two, and I don't know how well that would have worked. So I might try the smaller one on here. That way it'll go up a little bit higher, and then you wouldn't have as much sticking out of the pocket. Well, now I'm curious. Let's see what it is in grams first. And you got to remember, it's got the Alta clip on it. So 150 grams or 5.29 ounces with that Alti clip. That's definitely doable for my EDC carry. And without the sheath, it's coming in at 3.629 ounces. So I think that's outstanding. Now let's do some size comparison to some comparable knives. It's pretty much identical in length to the Kaiser Militao fixed blade, and it's a little bit bigger than the Sencut Waxahachie. And it's a little bit smaller than the Civivi Elementum fixed blade, and it's just about identical in length to the Remet Allosaurus fixed blade. And it's just a hair longer than both the Horns Shark and the Volseed XL Mink. And lastly, it's just a little bit shorter than the Civivi Stormbridge, and it's a little longer than the Civivi Varius. Now, being that absolutely no knife's perfect, what are my nitpicks and complaints? I would have loved to see this sharpening choil brought all the way down into the scale. That way it's easier to choke all the way up if I want. I think the biggest thing for me are these hard edges you have that are left over from these chamfers. But like I said earlier, that's a quick and easy fix, probably 10 minutes with some fine grit sandpaper, and it's good to go. So what are my final thoughts on the Tenable Luccio? Well, like I said in the very beginning, I hope this is not the last EDC fixed blade we see coming from Tenable, because they pack a ton of value in this EDC fixed blade. Love a good harpoon. Love a good raw stone wash. They nail the jimping. It's a very slicey blade. In one of my favorite budget steels, 14C 28N. I think that steel fits the price point perfectly. They nailed it with the minimal sheath. You know, that would have really been a bummer if they would have made a big old wide 2-part kydex. This will definitely be linked. It will be an affiliate link. So by using my links, you're helping support the channel. That helps me pay for my testing materials and things like that. If so, I can't thank you enough. If not, no sweat at all. So that's going to do it for today's video. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, leave those down below, and I'll do my best to get back with you. I hope every one of y'all is having a fantastic day. Remember, keep those blades sharp. Smile more.